Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Zach Norris. I am a native Oaklander, born and raised, and I am just so excited to welcome you to the campaign kickoff for Alicia Johnson and Cherisse Gash, who are running in District 1 and District 3, and they are incredible candidates who we're hoping you will have an opportunity to meet and hear from on this call. But we cannot do that without first really acknowledging this moment that we're in. This is a moment of great turmoil. It is a moment of great importance. It is a moment that is reflective of the nation's past and obviously instructive in terms of the nation's future. And that's true as much here in the Bay Area as it is in any other part of the country. What we see in Oakland is a city under siege. It's not a city under siege because people are demanding change. It's a city under the siege of structural racism and inequality. And this global pandemic, COVID-19, has exposed that. The ongoing police violence that resulted in the murder of George Floyd has exposed that. And I've been thinking quite a bit about what are the kind of elected leaders that we need in this moment. And I am sure that we need folks who are determined, who are courageous, and who are willing to speak truth to power, to lead us into a society where all of us are cared for, and that obviously starts with our schools. So I am just so appreciative that you all have joined us to hear from Alicia Johnson and Cherisse Gash. And we have a series of speakers who are going to speak to the importance of this moment and why it's important to have school board officials, why it's important to have folks on our school board who are willing to stand up against the status quo and to say that we should no longer have police in schools, as they have already said in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where George Floyd was murdered by the police. And so I want to get right into it. And I'm going to ask Nikeah Manning, who is with the Black Organizing Project, who has been fighting for years, and their organization has been fighting for nearly a decade to get police out of schools in Oakland, to really talk to us about the importance of this moment and the importance of having school board candidates and school board members, ultimately, who really understand this issue. So, Nikeah?
Thank you, Zach. Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening, community. Thank you for that introduction, for the acknowledgement of this heavy moment that we are in, that we are experiencing collectively. I do want to allow us to be human, so I would just lead us in taking a collective breath. It's okay to breathe, especially before, going into a conversation like this. And so, again, my name is Nikeah Manning. I am a proud BOP member. I am also our program coordinator. And so BOP stands for Black Organizing Project. We were founded back in 2009, and we are a member-led grassroots, multi-generational organization based in Oakland, and we are working and fighting for our social, racial, and economic justice in Oakland and throughout the greater Bay Area. BOP actually started back in 2009 out of a couple of responses, but ultimately out of the need and recognizing that there was a lack of Black infrastructure. There was a lack of Black organizing, and there was a lack of safe Black spaces for Black people to come together to, feel what we were are going through, to discuss, the experiences, and most importantly, to really brainstorm and share with each other and envision the possibilities and the futures that we would like to see. And so over a course of 2 years, we made sure we stayed on the ground and heard and checked in with our community to see where the direction of our work would go. in 2011, 2 years later, we actually got news from our community that a young brother by the name of Raheem Brown, rest in peace, he was shot and murdered at the hands of the Oakland School Police Department outside of Skyline High School. And if it were not for our community, we would have not known this had happened because, like all other incidents, things were covered up. And so after hearing this and taking it back to our membership, multiple issues arise, but we found that we had to take on the issue of school police and take it on immediately. And so in 2011, not only in response to Raheem's murder, but we also knew that, as we see today, this was a part of a collective warfare against us. That although we weren't inspired by Raheem Brown murder, unfortunately, that this was about everybody else, and we wanted to make sure this would not happen to anybody else in Oakland. And so we set out to, look more deeper into it, and we actually found out that Oakland had its own school police department. Not only were they contracted with school police, but at the time they were also contracted with OPD. And then we also had the third level of our school security officers. And so we knew right away that this was an issue. And we set out to eliminate them. About a couple months ago, we actually produced a people's plan. We call this the BOPS People's Plan, and it is a comprehensive guide, a step-by-step guide on literally how OUSD can eliminate their school police department. We also produced a document called Our Black Sanctuary Pledge. And that was in response to Oakland as a district claiming itself to be a sanctuary district. But what we realized was that Black students and families were not a part of this. That while they called for, the protection of brown students as they should have, and as we should continue to, but Black students were not a part of that sanctuary. And we knew they weren't a part of that sanctuary because OUSD invests in their very own school police department. So it's important for us to continue to recognize the direct parallels that the police in our communities are no different from the police in our school, who are no different from, ICE. They're no different. They are all the same. And so, since 2011, we have been on the front lines continuing to push the narrative of why police in our schools are such a threat, why they are such a danger to the literal livelihood of us. And we have been asking and calling on community to show up, to support, to stand in the name of Black Sanctuary, to make sure that the police in schools must end immediately. That if this current board does not do it, the importance of the incoming board to prioritize this as an essential and critical need. And so we ask, for community support to continue to push the board to make their decision. This is not only a budget issue, but this is a moral issue. This is a political issue, and we are demanding that people take the political and moral position to decriminalize our schools and decriminalize our students and our families in our schools. So we are honored and we are thankful for all of the support that we have received and that we have continued to receive. But this is only the beginning, and we are just so fortunate to be in the position, unfortunately, to be in this time, but let's use this time as the fuel to make sure that none of this happens to no one else. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nikeah. I really greatly appreciate you helping to set that context. And it's a context that Cherisse, Gash, and Alicia Johnson have been fighting and been active on and showing up at school board meetings and really demanding and supporting in solidarity with Black Organizing Project, the demand to end policing in schools in Oakland. They have been consistent, they have been determined, and we have, unfortunately, as a group, also experienced the brutality of Oakland Unified School District police. There were parents, there were teachers that were brutalized, quite frankly, by the Oakland Unified School District. And we were taken to when we were protesting at the school board meeting and arrested, we were taken to Cole Middle School, what used to be Cole Middle School, which they actually converted basically into a substation for the Oakland Unified School Police Department, right? And so the irony in that, or the appropriateness in that, I think is evident that we have been fighting both to get police out of schools as well as fighting against school closures. And there is someone who has been in that struggle much longer than I have, who is, as far as I'm concerned, a legend in the Bay Area, and deservedly so. He is a civil rights attorney, but he is so much more than that. He is a fighter for justice. I am so pleased and honored to be able to bring Walter Riley to this Zoom stage. So Walter, can you bless us with your thoughts and tell us about the importance of having school board candidates who care about these issues?
Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Alicia. Thank you, Cherisse. Thank you for all the folks that are here on this call. This is part of a movement, and that is what makes the difference in every aspect of our lives, what a movement is. Police out of schools. Schools should be devoted to parenting in the absence of the parents, and should not be the punishment that is meted out by the state, the incarceral state that looks at our kids, whether they're in schools or on the streets, as problems. If you're a Black, brown, South Asian, lower economic status, you are a problem for the establishment. This movement that we are in right now, that Cherisse and Alicia are a part of, is a pushback against that mentality, against that world outlook that we are problems that have to be corralled, that we are problems that have to be the blunt end of law enforcement's work. My whole life has been fighting against these aspects of a racist, classist society that does not intend to benefit the interests of the vast majority in the communities that I am part of. Now, I am a resident in District 1. This is Alicia's district. I am an activist in District 3, where Cherisse is running. I worked in District 3 around housing issues. I most recently worked with the Moms for Homes in District 3, where we fought for a different approach, setting a new paradigm around how communities can respond to the issue of homelessness, the issue of pushing out people that should be part of our communities, that should be respected, that should be supported, that there should be investments in. Our community has not been invested in. Cherisse and Alicia are people who are committed to listening to us, being part of our collective, being part of a community approach towards making change. So it's not just police in schools, though it is police in schools. It is not just the issue of dealing with what students are doing when they're homeless. It is a community of schools that deals with a community of people that are homeless, that are houseless. It is not just inequities in education and the subject matters that have to be dealt with, but it's the inequities that exist in our society, our social economic structure that has to be reformed, that Cherisse and Alicia are part of, and part of making those changes. We will make those changes because we are a movement. The organizations that they are connected with, the community of people that supports their campaign will make a movement. They will not do tremendous work by themselves. They are committed to being part of a community approach. There's a lot to be said about building community. And in this period of COVID-19 and a national government that is unresponsive to our needs, a national government that is trying to use force and military force to invade our communities again, to destroy our economic viability as a community of people of color and struggling people, we have to find unity among those people and around us that can work together. We cannot work in small groups. We cannot survive among this devastating attack on our existence without finding combinations of ways to work with other people. What I like about this campaign and these two people is that I'll go on forever if you let me, but that they are part of community. They are part of working together. Thank you, Cherisse. Thank you, Alicia, for running. Having the courage to run in a system where your ideas will be challenged by people with lots of money and access to resources to attack you. We have your back. We will be part of that. I join with all these people on this call and the people tuning in to say, be part of the fight back.
Right on. Thank you, Walter. Greatly appreciate that. As you mentioned, Cherisse and Alicia are candidates who are from the community, of the community, concerned about the community, and understand that the issue of the closure of public schools, the decimation of public housing has been part and parcel of moving Black and Brown communities out of Oakland, and are determined to ensure that all of us have a place here in Oakland. And so that's why I am so greatly supportive of them. I want to just lift up something else you said, which was the importance of movement. And I think about a certain someone who ran for city council and had a movement behind her, and that is Aimee Allison in the Bay Area in Oakland. I remember being here around the turn of the century and just being so inspired by her campaign. And ultimately, that campaign was not successful in certain senses, but it was successful in the ways that movements are, and that is to inspire folks. So the Ella Baker Center became part of something called Oakland Rising and Oakland Rising Action, which really kind of came out of really seeing what's the possibility of progressive change. And Aimee Allison was helping to lead that charge. She is a veteran in multiple senses of the word. She is a veteran fighter for racial justice, gender justice, economic justice. And now, as a founder of She the People, she is helping women of color really continue to fight for those issues. So I am just so super honored as well to be able to invite Aimee Allison, who's going to bring up Alicia Johnson and Cherisse Gash to our Zoom stage. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it to you, Aimee, and allow you to take it away. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Zach, for those kind words. I'm really honored to be back in Oakland in every sense of the word. And Walter, you are a hero, and we owe you a debt of thanks for the decades of dedication and work that you have put into building a movement, a powerful movement in Oakland. Nikeah, this is our first time meeting, but you are the voice of an entire generation. I'm very proud of to be here with you. You know, it's interesting because this moment, there's a lot of possibility in this moment. When I founded She the People as a national voice to elevate the political power of women of color, to lead a multiracial coalition and a politics of justice, I could not have predicted 2 years ago what the journey would be that would be here. Women of color are the majority of women in California, majority of women in Oakland, the most powerful, courageous leaders in movement on the streets like Nikeah, and in Congress and other levels of government. And I suppose that's why I'm here today. I deeply believe that the issue of school policing, the issue of resources, of school closures, all the things that we care about in Oakland and communities across the country are going to be in the hands of groups like this in school board. District 1, District 3 is part of a coalition of legislators that affect our children and our families. And that's part of where I believe our greatest opportunity at this moment is. I started out running for local government, and what was, in my city council run, the best candidates and the most successful legislators for the people always have a connection to movement. They are not a separate thing. They look at themselves as part and parcel of articulating what we're hearing in the street, what advocates are saying, the policies that can exist. They're fixing themselves to a position of great expansion and imagination for things that could be. Everyone always told us, don't imagine that. You can't imagine that. And I'm seeing particularly women of color take a courageous lead. This week, actually, in the last 24 hours, we've seen some incredible movement around response on the local level. We saw the Minneapolis School Board cut their ties with the police department. We saw Denver do the same thing. This is an issue that's being considered, and I am confident that with the leadership of these two absolutely amazing leaders on the school board, along with some of the partners that are there already in the community, that we can get this done. We can eliminate cops from our public schools. They have no business being there. And there's never been an opportunity for us like now to move forward powerfully to make justice the law of the land in Oakland. And I think that's why I'm here. Women of color are going to be the most important critical vote as the core of the progressive force that needs to go through the pandemic, despite COVID-19 and all the unrest and anger, to lead a coalition. But we first have to believe that it's possible by investing deeply in leaders that we know will not fold, will not turn away from us, but will carry our movement all the way through those meetings to the right kinds of votes that create opportunities for our children. And so that's why I'm here. I would just say that I had a conversation with a friend. I forgot how I met her. She's in her maybe late 30s, and she reminded me that she volunteered on my campaign in 2006 when she was part of Mujeres Activas. That organization was one of the organizations I'd worked with as part of my campaign. And that's where she cut her teeth. And she moved from organizer to working in electoral politics. Now she leads the largest multiracial group that's registering and getting people out to vote in Florida. She was one of the few women of color behind passing Amendment 4 to restore felony rights, and is about to turn that state blue. And my goodness, it started right here in Oakland. So we have so much potential and possibility, but more than ever, we can actually make it happen with the right leadership. So this is why I'm part of this conversation. I work in national politics mostly now, but I am so happy to introduce and to be part of the Kickoff. In District 1 in North Oakland, check out Alicia Johnson, mother of 2 children, attending Oakland Public Schools, and has been an advocate for public ed her whole life. Supported the teacher strike last year by running a strike solidarity school in her home. She continues to fight for good wages for teachers, more resources in the classroom, and equity for all students. Also has a master's degree in public administration, and went on to work with the San Jose Mayor's office at some point. And I'm just very, very happy for us to be in conversation, Alicia, today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Aimee. And thank you, Walter and Nikeah and Zach. I do feel very honored and blessed to be part of this community of advocates, not just for our students, but for Oakland community as a whole. And I'm really excited to speak with you all today about my vision for Oakland schools and what I've learned and on this journey I've been on with this community and my family since we've lived in Oakland. Thank you.
And I can't wait to get into more of the detail about that, which I think is amazing. Wanted to introduce District 3, which is near where I live in the downtown area, Lake Merritt area. Cherisse Gash comes from a family of educators, I believe is a native Oaklander, mother, great-grandmother, cousins, all from Oakland, which is pretty amazing, and a parent in the district. So we're talking about two people that are parents in the district, and a dedicated parent volunteer works as a health educator, advocate, caretaker, and from a union family and a longtime resident in this neighborhood. Very, very happy to have you with us, Cherisse.
Thank you so much. That was a fabulous introduction that you did for everyone. And I'm really thankful to have everyone here with us. And it's just really to be an honor to be with everyone. I just feel very small with this group, but I feel that with all of you all as our partners in our fight for better education for our students, that you create giants. And so it's more of just an appreciation to all of you. And, just thank you for everything that you all do for our community already and have been.
Cherisse, what led you to run for school board?
Well, I'm a teacher's kid. And even though I begrudgingly went to all of their meetings and everything like that, it seeps into you. And it's just one of the things that once you understand how education is important to the student's overall lifetime, you have to be able to be an advocate for it. And so being a mother in OUSD, over the last 10 years of my son's journey here, we've had to fight for public education, against school closures, equity within inclusion of having African-American males within a classroom. It's been an issue that it's been such a fight. And I'm running because I don't want people to have to fight for 10 years in order to get the help that they need for their students, especially for our public education. I want to be an advocate for folks. I want to be an advocate for students and families. And I want to lead with their positive issues and messages for their students. And I want to have that focus be driven for that and for them. So it wasn't that, I love Oakland. I love our children and I love our communities, and I want the best for them.
Alicia, these are times we've never lived through these kind of times before. I mean, COVID, and then unemployment. Half of Black people are unemployed in this country now, and police violence unabated, and protests in the streets even today. In this context, you're running for school board. Why?
Well, it's a great question. My family, when we first moved to Oakland 4 years ago, we had some challenges getting my son into school. There wasn't space in our neighborhood schools, our public schools, so he started at a private school. We ended up in a charter. It wasn't serving his needs. We pulled him out and we finally got a space in our neighborhood school. And now that school has been permanently closed. So my son, who's 9, will now be in his 4th school in 4 years in Oakland. And, but the truth is, when we finally landed at our incredible public school, we had a wonderful experience. My son has medical issues. He has a low level of anxiety because of all the transitions. And he was welcomed with love and open arms by his teachers and that smaller school environment. Since his social, emotional needs were being met there, he could focus on learning, and I didn't have to be concerned anymore. And so I think every child in Oakland should have that same experience. And I want to fight for that, for these kids in our community. And some people think I haven't been in Oakland long enough to understand my district or my community. But the thing about me is my work generally goes unseen because I've been working behind the scenes for teachers and students, and that includes being on the PTA. I've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for the school and tens of thousands of dollars for community organizations who support schools. I've been room parent, snack sale coordinator, answering phones in the office, a volunteer assistant in the school library. And I think that these are things that parents can relate to. Parents they do a lot of the work so that teachers can teach and students can learn. And that's so important. And I want to take that dedication that I've given to my school community and that I'll continue as long as my children are in school and work for the students and families in Oakland.
I'm interested in the two of you being in the Zoom call together. I just want to talk to you, Cherisse, real quick. What are the areas that you're in agreement with? If you're both elected, I mean, we need 4 votes to get anything done on the school board. What are the things that bring you together?
Well, one thing is we're in the motherhood category, and we are parents that have actively volunteered in each and one of our school sites. I have, my son has been in at least 4 different school sites within Oakland, and so I have just a little bit more experience of just the middle school and the high school and everything like that. But we have similar issues because we love our students, and our issues of we know the trauma of having schools closed and what it does to our students. I know the issues of having to have a safe haven for our students and not having a policed environment. We want, transparency within our budget and our district because we've both been on school site councils, and we want to make sure that it's transparent for everyone in the community and not just for a few. And we want to make sure that the funds are allocated properly to all of our school sites. So, we have a lot in common, and it just is basically for the love of our students and for our community. And so for that, I think we're a good team and able to support the policies and voting rights for students and parents and communities.
Well, I think it's really important for voters to understand the context in which you are running. In March of this year, Black Organizing Project, some of these people, Zach, some of the other folks organizers on the call, as well as 3 members of the current school board, brought before a resolution to the full board to cut policing budget in half from $6 million to $3 million. Now, the environment's changed, and I think they're going to go, try for another vote in a few weeks. But my question is, and I want to go to you, Alicia, is you are both running in seats where the incumbent voted to keep the policing budget at $6 million. In other words, they were opposed to reducing the cops in our schools. I'm trying to understand how a mom would come to that and the conditions by which, despite enormous pressures, that someone in the school district could make a different decision. Can you talk to me a little about how, as a leader, your approach would help us to actually win that?
Thank you. That's a great question. It's actually really, really personal to me. On October 23rd of last year, people peacefully protesting the school board were attacked by OUSD police. I was there with my 6 and 8-year-old at the time, and my husband was also present. And my daughter saw her first grade teacher, who's taught in Oakland for over 20 years, get smacked in the arm and knocked down with a baton so bad that she was injured. And at the end of the night, my children were hysterical at what they had witnessed. And, these police are in our schools, and our kids, the school board student directors have begged, please take these police out of our schools. We are fearful. We do not have trust as people of color. We don't have trust in that police force. We have undocumented students that have a lot of fear and concern about being around police. And if police, the Oakland School Police, can beat parents and teachers in a public school board meeting, what are they doing to our students when nobody is looking? And I have biracial children, and that was really their first experience with the police. And I feel very grieved about it. And I don't want that to continue. No student should be exposed to that within their education. School is a place where students get stability, they get emotional nurturing, especially high school, they get to be with their friends and really start becoming the adult that they're going to be. And they should not have that fear of police, that presence. $6 million could provide a special education aid for every classroom in Oakland. It could provide more nurses, counselors, and resource specialists. Oakland has it's been a pioneer in restorative justice. We need that program. This money can be used for teachers' salaries and to ensure that teachers get to live in the community with which they teach. It's so important. And yet we are paying police. Oakland Unified is the only school district in Alameda County with their own police force. It's unnecessary. It's shown that police, they raise tension in schools, and it's just a cause for great concern for me. And I would work absolutely. I stand in solidarity with Bob. I stand in solidarity with our communities of color for them to feel safe in our communities and schools. And I would absolutely work my hardest to eliminate school police.
Thanks. Cherisse, what's your vision, or how do you envision the role of police in the schools, if any?
I don't think it's at all in our school system. And I would definitely make sure they would be eliminated. I grew up in West Oakland and during the height of, unfortunately, the crack era. And so it was literally a war zone. And so seeing police attack young Black men, young women, helicopters circling, police with extremely large weaponry, it takes a toll. It's traumatizing. And I went to school, we had drills. We had gun drills even before any of the school shootings had ever occurred. And I never heard that. And it's for me, seeing police officers, it doesn't make me feel that, this place is just so wonderful, we're just totally secured. It makes me feel that, as a person, that harm may come to me, that with the police department, we don't know who they are. As parents and as students, we have no idea of what their records are. There's no way to hold them accountable for anything. And especially what happened in October, we still haven't seen the videos of it from their armor. We haven't seen any of that. They won't be held accountable, and that's a problem. So, I don't see them being a present. That money needs to go to therapists. We need libraries, functioning open library in all of our school sites. We need nurses. We've always needed these things. We've needed them on every single site. But this money has been diverted for the needs of a police department, which our students don't need. So I don't see them in our system. They don't need to. We already have a civil force. If something would occur on a school site campus, that's who needs to be called. Because our OUSD PD has to stand down the requirements for the police officers. So what we need is more money for our school site security officers who are from Oakland, who know the students. Give them more money and resources so that they can continue the bonds and relationships that they have with their students on their sites.
Cherisse, it sounds like if you're elected, you're a vote to eliminate the police force in the district.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Well, it's interesting because the board and the administration have been implementing this blueprint for quality schools, also known as, and for those of you watching, this is like board policy 6006. I've never heard of it, but that's what it is. Indicated that they continue to do in the fall. I want to ask you, Alicia, what your thoughts are on this policy. Explain what it is first and foremost for those of us who need just teeny bit of background, and what your thoughts.
It's basically a policy to merge and close schools in Oakland Unified, our public schools. And Board Policy 6006, the Blueprint for Quality Schools, isn't a community-oriented policy, and it's not creating quality schools. And in my opinion, it needs to be repealed. There's a myth in Oakland that Oakland has too many public schools. Yet in the last 2 decades, 15 out of the 18 public schools closed have turned into charter schools, which shows me that those neighborhoods needed and wanted schools at those sites, but now they're out of the public's control. And, Oakland has really created a community of small schools. The community wants those small schools. And because of certain things like the state takeover and FICMAC and these requirements and the wishes of those elected right now, they will be on a path to close 10 to 15 more schools in August to vote for those schools to be closed. And all of this in the middle of a pandemic.
So are you arguing schools should not be closed?
Absolutely.
What are you arguing?
Yes, my argument is that schools should not be closed. It's traumatic to students. It does not save money. There's ample research that it does not save money. And especially it traumatizes and affects predominantly our students of color. They're not closing, schools with rich white people. They're closing our schools in areas where we need the schools the most, where schools, I've been to so many of these schools in Oakland. People walk there. That's their hub. They meet their neighbors. Their kids know each other and play together. And a school is just a safety net for so many communities. And I know it was for myself. And that was taken away from us when our school was closed. And now in the middle of a pandemic, my own children have to go to a brand new community where they don't know anybody. And schools need to be open in Oakland. Public education is the cornerstone of democracy. We need to...
And I just, I wanted to go to you, Cherisse, with this specific question because there has been these explosive meetings and so many protests around school closures. I think a lot of people are anticipating the current board is going to try to close more schools. So first of all, what is your response to school closures, your legislative approach would be to that? And what do you say to people that say, the district simply doesn't have the money to keep these schools open?
It's funny when people say the district doesn't have the money to do, keep schools open, ink for copy machines. But our school district has the highest paid administrators out of any other district. People are becoming independently wealthy with their salaries from the OUSD school district. So to say that we don't have money is false. It's not being properly allocated and getting to our students and our school sites, but the money is there. As far as closing school sites, and again, the school sites that have been closed, majority of them have been in the flatlands, majority of them have been for Black and Latino students. And what happened with those students? No one tried to see what the educational environment was after that. They got left out. They got cheated and cut short of their education. They had to have experiences of commuting longer and longer, throughout the city of Oakland. I was a student that had to commute to school. And, it's tiring. And then you get to school and you're labeled as lazy, when all you just need is maybe some rest. Or maybe you just need a school site in your neighborhood that wasn't closed. Our people who were on the committee did not like the plan. They denied it. They said it didn't work. It wasn't equitable. And the district went through it anyway. So I want to listen to families and our students. I want to have their students, and I'm sure that their school sites are there and they're functional. But the money is there for them because it's there for.
And Cherisse, I'm jumping in because doggone Wi-Fi is kind of interrupted a little of your answer, but I will just say the school closures we're talking about are not current COVID-19 related, but the permanent school closures that have been the source of so much conflict and disagreement between the parents and the administrators. And so we have just a few minutes left for questions from people who are watching. If you don't mind, I'd like to have time to hear from both of you for the questions that we're getting. The first one is from Michael, who's watching on YouTube. What will you do, and this one will go to you, Alicia. What will you do concerning the $65 million in proposed spending for the Cole Campus Administration Project?
Well, I think that OUSD spending in general we need to get a hold of it, a grasp on it. There's no transparency. We see these big multi-million-dollar projects come through. They get voted on. They get changed. They do these non-compete contracts. Relatives get the contracts. There needs to be more transparency. And I really want to get in there and I want to fight for transparency within the budget and really look at these projects. Is that what the district needs? Is that the best use? The district is constantly talking about they want to sell surplus property. You know, we do need an administration building. They need to get out of 1000 Broadway. The administration is sitting in nice air-conditioned offices while our children are sweltering in unair-conditioned schools. And so there needs to be transparency. There needs to be accountability. As a school board member, I will ask those tough questions. I don't hear those tough questions currently being asked by OUSD staff, and I absolutely will demand it. And the other thing I want to say about the budget is that too much money is going to the top. They continually want to blame teachers and students, and it's not their fault. They need resources to properly educate our children. And we have to stop that. Cut from the top, funnel that money down to the ground to schools where it can be used, and where the community gets to decide in those schools how best to use those funds.
Thanks, Alicia. And just Cherisse, I'm going to go to a different question from another person in the audience. This is from Olivia. How will you make sure that funds for the Oakland Unified School District are distributed equitably? You sort of hinted at the answer earlier, and I wanted to come and what specific actions would you take?
Okay. Well, one, you would need to look at the school's budgets. And a lot of our school budgets have to do with enrollment for the students. So our enrollment policies and the way our enrollment is handled has to have a deep dive and intimate look at it. And so our school sites need to have enrollment equity with enrollment within our school district. And that would support a lot of the school sites that they feel have smaller budgets. Also, we also need to see how the administrators are handling it and, you know, what projects are being worked on as opposed to, you know, site management. You know, it's unfortunate, you know, what's happening with our students in the city, but I want to make sure that, you know, the money will go directly to the right place. We have to talk to families, we have to talk to the administrators and make sure that folks are there to properly allocate every dollar to the students.
And, you know, we're just almost out of time, and I want you all to be able to give a couple of thoughts at the end really briefly, but just very quickly. And we heard this from another member of the audience. You know, Emily's wondering about ranked choice voting. Oakland's got ranked choice voting. It is a strategy that was advocated by progressives. I think because these are both seats in District 1 and District 3, there's going to be a lot of people running. What is your approach? Do you see yourself? I know you're working kind of across district, but within this, you know, people who are running for the same office, do you see yourself partnering with any other progressive candidates who hold similar issues and doing a first, second, third approach?
I guess I'll go first on that one. I believe that, you know, it's very early on still. And so I would love to be able to partner with other folks that definitely have our criteria in mind, and I'm open to it.
That sounds like it's a yes. Alicia?
I feel the same way. If someone is committed to the same values that I am, and I feel they'd be an excellent candidate, they need to know that if I lose, I will still be their best friend, emailing them all about the issues. And so absolutely, I'm willing to work with people and be an ally in this fight, because this election is crucial. 4 seats open. It's crucial to Oakland and our students that we elect the right people.
Yes, I 100% agree. And really briefly, in like 30 seconds, kind of close it out for us. Let's go to you, Cherisse. Any final thoughts?
I want to say this year is critical for voting, not just for national issues, but everything going down for our state. And the main issue that you need to vote upon are your city and local policies and board members. And so voting for a board member helps your students, it helps your community, primarily first, as opposed to anything else naturally. So I would encourage students, parents, anyone who's registered to support and, have your mail-in ballots ready, vote early and often, and, vote for me. My name is Cherisse Gash. I'm in District 3, and I'm going to vote for everything that for the needs of our students and for our parents and for communities.
And what's your website?
It is CherisseGash.com.
Awesome. Thank you. Alicia, just very briefly.
I just want to say one quick point that I wasn't able to get to is about with closing schools in the middle of pandemic, it's not safe for our students. We need the space for our students to practice social distancing, for our teachers to have a safe work environment. And I really want to emphasize that we should not be closing schools at this time. The last thing I want to say is that as your candidate, as your school board member, I would work very hard with the community, listening, working together, working across districts to benefit our students, to include our families, to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to get the right education. We have a lot of work to do. We have to break this systematic racism that is in our school system right now that's really affecting our children. And we all need to put in the work together to make that happen. And I'm really excited to be on this journey with everyone.
What's your website? Alicia, what's your website?
AliciaForChildren.org.
All right. Well, I want to thank you, Alicia. Thank you, Cherisse. I encourage everyone to look into and support the campaign. I want to thank the organizers who brought this together. And Walter and Nikeah. I want to thank Zachary and Saru, who's not on this screen, but is a force always in Oakland, helping us to make justice for our children, serve our children here in Oakland. If you're interested in them, check it out. It's been my honor, Aimee Allison at shethepeople.org, and I really look forward to, ladies, I got your back. We got you. There's millions of us women of color that want to see the police out of schools, that support a progressive agenda of racial, economic, gender, and social justice. You can count on us. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.